before you
keep talking about me like I'm not right here
You're
in the room.
sidestepping the main question.
I'm right here.
Tony told me what he told me off the camera in confidence.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys obviously about Morgan and Lyndon and Tony. And I want to talk about this. Who should Morgan choose out of Tony and Lyndon? Because out of this whole situation, it got mad, it got peak, and people showed their tail. So who should Morgan choose for next week's show? I'm going to tell you quite plainly in the next few minutes in my review. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like it, you share, you subscribe, you click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated. Oh, okay. The vocals are on point today. Listen, don't forget as well, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about it. Who should Morgan choose out of Lyndon and Tony? Let me tell you quite frankly, neither of them. Now, listen, I've been giving Morgan smoke all throughout the show, but this week I felt sorry for her, and this week I actually felt some type of empathy and pain for her because I saw what was going on between the two boys. These are not two men you choose at all. And I'm going to break it down as to why you should not choose either man. Now, if it goes on too long, I might do a part 2 if necessary. I don't want to go too long. But let's first break down why I definitely believe she should not be dating Tony, because there were a number of things that was happening. Number one, Tony is possessive. Yes, Tony is possessive. You know, the definition of possessive, what I even got from Google, was telling me somebody who desires all your attention, they're demanding all your total attention and love. And why do I say this is a problem? Why do I say that's an issue? I want you to just watch this part here, okay?
This is a perfect dinner. I'm gonna draw a big heart around this.
This motherfucker, yo. What?
Just
Okay.
Now, at this point in conjuncture, Tony was asking Morgan to move closer to him, even though she was already sitting next to him. And he wanted her to move closer to him to avoid being next to Lyndon. At this particular junction, listen, Lyndon, I know he knows what he's doing, but he's not paying any attention to Tony right now. Like, I know he's doing it on purpose, and I know he's very much aware of his behavior. He's making it very difficult for Tony to win this game. Fair play. But for Tony to want to drag her to the side where he's at and want her total attention in that moment, it's like, no, she has two people with her. She has two people on this show, which is you and Lyndon. And when you had Marcia, you felt no type of way. Now, that's the kind of conversation they had a little bit later on when Jeffrey Morgan and himself were sitting down and conversing. And she told him, I wasn't behaving like this when you were talking to Marcia, so don't do this to me. Now, what's really interesting about this is how later on, how he gets up, throws a little strop, goes outside, and she has to follow him and say, let's have a conversation. And he successfully draws her away from Lyndon. It's a tantrum, right? But it's possessiveness. It's demanding total attention and love from that person. When it wasn't long ago, you had Marcia, you were comfortable. I'm going to break it down what I believe that why that comes back later on in another video. The second part is his need to control. His need to control. And whenever somebody has a need to control, it's coming from a place of fear, and it's coming from a place of loss of power in another situation as to why they want to control the scenario. Let's have a look at this clip.
how we're gonna recover from them.
So the number one question is, do you continue?
I don't know.
Do you?
I don't know.
That's not good enough for me.
That's all I got. I don't know what the rest of the night is gonna look.
Now, he was pushing in this moment for an answer from Morgan about what do we continue, do we do? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. He wanted an answer right there and then. Why? Why did you want to answer right there and then, sir? Listen, you said you have her on. You said you had that under locks. You said that you can have her any time. You said that Lyndon wasn't a threat, and yet you find yourself in the doghouse in her room right now, pleading, wanting to make sure she actually gives you an answer definitively. You wanted a surety, and you wanted assurances that she wouldn't change her mind and go for Lyndon. This is screaming to me there's a bigger issue than just control. There's a fear of embarrassment and a fear of rejection. You thought you had this woman from the jump. You've always thought that, Tony. This is not a beef. You've always thought you had Morgan in the bag. and Lyndon wasn't a threat. You told us that several times. And that's your ego, that's the egotism talking at that moment, right? That's you thinking you were bigger than you actually were. That's you because you've kissed her 3 or 4 times, you've assumed that, you know what, she is chosen you already. And by all means, I agree with you. I think she had chosen you. I think she had. But I think this definitely put different thoughts in her mind as to what person she had in her midst. Don't get it twisted. Morgan has her issues, but we're not talking about Morgan today. We're talking about Tony. There's a need to control, and a fear of a need to control is always coming from a fear of a loss of power where you had it. Where's the power loss? The power loss is in the interaction between himself and Morgan. Earlier on in the season, we saw how he played the game. He was happy to have Marcia. At one point, he had Janique. You know, he had other connections as well. And he was a ladies' man. Don't worry about what nobody says. Okay, don't worry about that. This is what I say to you. It's me and you, right? You had no problems doing that. And I told you about Morgan's behavior on the boat where she tried to wrestle back power as well, right? And so in that moment when she said that Linda's more sexy, you said you didn't feel no way about it. And now all of a sudden when it looks like she might not choose you, just a slight might not choose you, you're buckling at the knees. And this tells me that you weren't really that, you know what, there's a sense of arrogance and a sense of, I wouldn't say pride, because pride would mean that there's something there. There's a sense of ego, right? So a sense of arrogance and ego. And, you know, there was this assurity and air of, I got it, I handled it. She ain't gonna choose nobody else. You know, and unfortunately, you overplayed your cards. And now the control has shifted from her to make a choice because you made a mistake. You're fearful how she might choose, right? There's a fear of embarrassment and rejection in this moment now. And when we talk about embarrassment is a painful but important emotional state. Most researchers believe that the purpose of embarrassment is to make people feel badly about their social or personal mistakes as a form of internal or societal feedback so that they learn not to repeat the error. The embarrassed individual becomes conscious of a real or imagined failure to comply with social norms and fears that others won't view them as highly as a result. And this is what one of Tony's issues is. The not being viewed as highly as he was before, but not necessarily in the eyes of the whole group. But there's a part of that, which is you've gone from being this alpha male, which every woman was describing you as now being this man who's highly emotional because you got drawn out by Lyndon. Because you didn't have to have the argument on the table. You got drawn out, right? So there is a real fear of embarrassment of looking like a certain type of way in front of the whole group. You know, not being the dominant force that you once were. Not being a steady rock that you once were. And so there's that fear of embarrassment. There's a fear of rejection too. Not wanting to be in a place where you're rejected by Morgan too, because you know that you have a connection with her, but you thought you had it in the bag. That's the problem. Okay, that's the biggest problem. Then the next thing is talk about his massive ego. Okay, the fight on the table didn't need to happen. He's easily baited. Let me link those 2 points together. He's easily baited. Okay, let me give you a clip for that and tell you why he's easily baited. The argument on the table didn't need to happen. If I'm honest with you, let's just have a look.
It was still here. How would you feel right now? Who would you be? Lyndon.
Leave him alone.
Are we staying with the conversation or are you talking to Blake? Let's keep it 100. So if Marcia was here, we all know I have a connection with her, but Morgan been my number one since.
Now, he didn't need to answer that question, but he thought he was so slick. He thought he handled it. He should have said, listen, look, bro, Morgan's here, and you know I've always had Morgan as number one. That's it. Nothing else. I'm not discussing anymore. And he kept and Lyndon kept on baiting him, and he fell for it. Right? He's easily baited, and then his anger comes through. Right? Just like he's a hothead, as Morgan described. He's a hothead, and he really is a hothead, right? He allows things to rile him up too quickly. And that is scary for women because it doesn't make them feel safe, right? So this is another reason why Morgan can't choose him, okay? All right? Can't choose him. So that just going back to the very first point about being possessive, Morgan's also possessive. And this is given screams and shades of Married at First Sight, Michaela and Zach all over again. When they had their conversation, she was like, I'm possessive. And he was like, I like that. And I remember saying to myself, this is problematic. But I was so focused on Michaela, I didn't realize there are two parties in this. The fact that Tony still likes Morgan the way he does, when Morgan has showed us that she is highly, some way, tells me that there's obviously something also going on with Tony too. And the possessiveness coming through is showing me that. It's showing me that, right? It's showing me that there are similar energies between Morgan and Tony. All right. Okay. You can't be so arrogant like Samson that you tell your weakness to your enemy. That's how arrogant you were. You are Samson to Delilah, talking to Lyndon, who you said you do. And because you didn't fear, because you saw him as a small fry, because you thought you kissed Morgan a few times, because you thought it had in a bag, because of your arrogance, you misinterpreted the danger of your partner, of your competitor. You missed how deadly your competitor could actually be. And that's why he took advantage of you underestimating him.
You don't know what's going on between me and Morgan.
Wow.
So I was angry. You continue to be a nuisance. You continue to try.
Yeah.
And it's not happening.
No, Tony.
You took
The constant need to tell him you need to try and nothing's going to happen, is fear. Really and truly, it's fear, right? It may look like confidence, but it's not, it's fear. Now, of course, part of it is that Morgan wants you, right? That's obviously clear. We know that Morgan prefers you over Lyndon. But the constant need to keep on restating it and saying it out loud is problematic. It's problematic. It's telling us what we need to know, that there's issues in the situation. Right? Because if you keep telling us that, I kissed her 3 or 4 times, you're trying to prove that Lyndon hasn't got a chance. Why? If you believe he's got no chance. Because behind that arrogance really is a fear behind it, an unsurety. This is why Morgan can't choose Tony. These reasons behind possessiveness, fear of control, the hot-headedness, the ego, the pride, she can't choose him because of that. It will end in tears. If her and Tony go forward, it will be a toxic relationship because the need to try and have power over one another is going to be a problem. She says she wants a man to put her in her place, and he really will put her in her place. But then his possessiveness is coming off across as jealousy, is looking a bit mad right now. Right? Can't even sit at the table and the competitor is right next to her, not doing nothing, and you getting stressed. And then she's having to constantly try and calm the tiger down. Have you noticed? She's always in a place where she's trying to calm the tiger down. But the baddest thing about Morgan is she can't calm the tiger down because she says words that are inflammatory. What do I mean by this? Right? That's my last sentiment. And now I don't want to take too deep because I want to do a separate video on this as well, right?
Who act like a madman?
You're not acting.
What room you staying in?
I'm not saying that. I don't have to say that.
I'm asking you. You know what room you staying in, isn't it?
You ask me a lot of questions. Just because you ask me don't mean I have.
See, he likes this toxicity. And he may say he don't, but he does. He likes this toxicity. And she likes this toxicity, right? And then she inflames it too. And I'm not trying to blame her. I'm just saying she inflames it by the word choices she uses. These two will do battle till heaven comes back down, until Christ comes again, right? Because the constant need to try and win. They like the push and pull. Right? She's interpreting his possessiveness as desire and a wanting and a protection. But the reality is that possessiveness is going to become choking. She can't choose them. I'm going to do Lyndon in a separate video. Like, share, subscribe. Click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate it, guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We'll talk to you guys very, very soon. We'll see you again.